Creative babble.
This episode is brought to you by Nordstrom. For 125 years, Nordstrom has been part of your story. The stylist who found the perfect outfit for your big interview. The first pair of walking shoes for your 1-year-old. The tomato soup you shared with your sister at the cafe. These are the moments that make Nordstrom, Nordstrom. Big or small, we're here for all of it. Celebrating 125 years with new moments still ahead. Discover it all in Nordstrom stores and at Nordstrom.com.
Everyone has a hot take about Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
So what's your opinion on Gypsy Rose Blanchard?
I think that she was abused when she was younger, and I think she definitely had some mental illnesses that led her to do what she did, but I also think it was unfair of her to get a lesser sentence than Nick. Although Nick was the one that actually did it, I feel like he was very susceptible to what she was saying.
I don't know. It's a really complicated situation that I've never been in and I would never pretend to be in. And I don't want to speak on somebody else's pain and trauma because that's, holy fuck. I mean, it ended up in somebody losing their life. Well, Gypsy lost her life, no, right? Or the chance of, a normal life. And then, her mother lost her life. Whoever the fucking bum-ass boyfriend was.
Nick.
Wherever he is.
Jail.
So
it's just a very complicated, horrible situation.
It is.
To come out of jail and then now be this kind of influencer star, feeling like we're giving her this credit and she's great and she's got a show, she's got a puppy, she's got a baby, but it didn't feel good.
Like I said, everyone has opinions, but what do the facts say? You're listening to the Gypsy Rose Obsession. I'm Javier Leiva, and this is Pretend. Stories about real people pretending to be someone else. Some of her critics don't just say that she faked her illness. They say that Gypsy was the one who posed a real threat. That Dee Dee, her mother, was the true victim. That behind closed doors, Gypsy was the violent one. And they point to something that actually happened. At some point before the murder, Gypsy shot Dee Dee with a BB gun. That part is true. And Gypsy has never denied it.
So the BB gun incident happened when I attempted to run away for a second time. My mom had found my bag in the living room. She had came at me, and this is an attempt, a runaway attempt that failed. And so she came at me and I got scared, and there was a BB gun on the table, kitchen table. And I grabbed it out of fear and I released the BBs at her.
What was your intention though?
Just to scare her. I didn't even think that I would pull the trigger until I got scared. I knew that it was not a real gun. I knew that it was a BB gun, so I knew that it was not going to kill her. So I think it was out of fear. I freaked out and I released it.
Just to scare her? Now, the anti-Gypsy community uses this as Exhibit A, proof that Gypsy was dangerous, that she was capable of violence against her mother long before the murder. There's no doubt that the older Gypsy got, the harder she was to control. Some of these stories have become legend in the Gypsyverse, and this next one is no exception. But all we have is Gypsy's account. She says that after her first escape attempt failed, Dee Dee chained her to a bed for 2 weeks, smashed her phone and her computer with a hammer, and she put bells on every door in the house.
being chained to your bed, how often did that happen?
It was a one-time thing for about 2 weeks, and it was after my first runaway attempt. And it was just kind of like, I had been trying to do these runaway attempts, and I wasn't good at them. I would pack bags, and, now in hindsight, I'm just kind of like, why pack a bag? Like, just go, leave. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but back then I didn't have the smarts to look back on it and think, don't do that. Just get out.
You talked about multiple attempts to run away, and obviously, looking back, you could have done it better, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But here's the thing that I don't understand, is that when you ultimately came to the conclusion that the only way out was to kill her, right? Your plan was to run away and try to become a missing person.
Mm-hmm.
That seems even more far-fetched than the actual murder. Why not just run away? I mean, and this is what your critics say, but it's like a legitimate question.
Right.
Because you really didn't have to murder her because, from what I understand, she wasn't very tech savvy, right? Like,
she had friends that were, but
no, but I'm saying, like, if you ran away to Wisconsin or something like that, why was the murder necessary? I guess is my question.
It wasn't necessary. However, you could look on things, I could look on things now and see all the ways that I could have done things differently. Knowing what I know now, it's like, yes, go to the police, tell a friend, but the person that I told was Nick. And the same, I'm not trying to deflect or anything, but the same question could be asked for him. Why didn't you tell your mom? Tell the police? There was just so much that could have happened differently, and it didn't. But we only see that now in hindsight. Because before, it was like this urgency, this, have to get out of this situation by any means possible.
In hindsight, that's how we talk about the case. But Gypsy reminded me that when she first met Nick Godejohn on a Christian dating site in 2012, that she wasn't just looking for a way out. She told me that she was genuinely looking for love, and that Nick was what she thought love looked like at the time. But of course, her critics see it differently. Nancy Simpson is a journalist out of Springfield, Missouri, who covered this case from the very beginning. She runs a podcast called The Toll. Nancy has a very clear point of view of what Gypsy was really doing when she found Nick online. From your point of view, like when did Gypsy take the reins on this fantasy life that they were living?
Oh, I think it was the moment she sought out a man to come to Missouri and kill her mom. And I feel that she was shopping on those dating sites. I feel that she found a person she thought she could manipulate enough to get here. And then immediately that started in. And then that was that 2.5 years of grooming Nick and getting him to want to come and planting that seed in his mind over and over and over. We can only be together if you kill my mom. I truly believe that Nick would not be in prison for murder today had Gypsy not manipulated and worked him for 2.5 years.
Nancy Simpson landed 2 exclusive interviews on this case, both for her podcast, The Toll. An interview with Dee Dee and Gypsy's neighbor, and a sit-down interview with Greene County Sheriff Jim Arnott. Let's talk about your interview with the sheriff, because that was a huge exclusive, but that's because you already had a working relationship with him, right?
Sure. Yeah, I worked at the radio station for nearly 30 years and had known Sheriff Arnott almost the entire time. And so I went over there and met with him, and I sat with him for a couple of hours, really.
What we really try to do is keep an open mind and not get tunnel vision or narrowly focused on something.
Remember, authorities didn't even know a crime had taken place until Gypsy posted a Facebook status that alerted her friends. It read, quote, "That bitch is dead." I don't know if that was a cry for help, a moment of celebration. It was definitely a colossal mistake, but it worked. It was like a flare gun. Sheriff Arnott's deputies did a welfare check and discovered Dee Dee stabbed to death in her bedroom. Gypsy was nowhere to be found.
When we had what we thought to be an abduction and maybe a possible another murder, I was very concerned about that. Being a detective, most of my career time is of the essence.
Gypsy and Nick were not criminal masterminds. Police traced the IP address on the Facebook post straight to Godejohn's house in Wisconsin, and then the whole thing just fell apart really fast. Here's Sheriff Arnott at one of the first press conferences.
The issue is everybody thinks, oh my gosh, what happened to Gypsy? She's a victim. And then my thoughts were, things are not always as they appear. You may think that this person's a victim when it's just the absolute opposite. This person's a suspect.
Sheriff Arnott isn't picking a side. He believes that Gypsy really was a victim of abuse, of Munchausen by proxy. But in his eyes, victim doesn't always mean innocent. He believes that Gypsy could be just as conniving as the mother who spent 23 years controlling her.
She has turned into her mom. She is doing the manipulation. She is doing those things. And so how much of that is she responsible for? How much is that a total influence and manipulation by her mom? You've got to figure that out for yourself. And that's why we have the justice system, to make those decisions.
And the justice system did make a decision. Prosecutors put a deal on the table, plead guilty to second-degree murder, serve 10 years, and walk. That was down from a first-degree charge that could have meant the rest of her life behind bars. And she took it. I mean, wouldn't you?
I understand the prosecutor was doing what's best for the case and to get a conviction, and I don't disagree with it. Would I like to have seen Gypsy go away for a lot longer than she did, because I think she was more culpable than what her plea deal was? Of course. Our part is over. You know, she went to prison and did time, and Godejohn is still there. But as you know, this story is so much bigger, and it's not always as it appears.
In your interview with him, he said, justice was served, but not to everyone's satisfaction, right? And I think that that's the whole crux of this whole thing, is that justice was served, right? But the community's like, Nick got more justice than Gypsy, and that's not fair. And do you believe that that's why we're even having this conversation today?
I do believe, absolutely. If she was doing life, she would not be out here on the internet and social media and making money and all the stuff that goes with that.
When we come back, was Nick Godejohn tricked into killing Dee Dee? We have the text messages, the prison interviews, and the public records. And they paint a very complicated picture. That's after the break.
So good, so good, so good.
New fall arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off brands like Vince, Steve Madden, Kate Spade New York, and Boss. Stock up on the latest trends like animal print, lace, and suede. Join the Nordy Club for free to unlock exclusive discounts, shop clearance, and new arrivals before anyone else, and so much more. Plus, you can buy online and then pick up your order at your favorite Rack store. It's fast and free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
Here's something I didn't expect when I first started reporting this story. Some of the loudest voices in the Gypsyverse have flipped the script entirely. The way they talk about it, Nick, the man who physically carried out the murder, became the victim somehow.
Everybody talks about Gypsy Rose Blanchard, but I don't think enough people honestly talk about Nicholas Godejohn and how his disabilities and his legal defense shaped this case.
Content creator Alma Rose on TikTok is making that case.
I don't think enough people know that Nicholas was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Experts who evaluated him also found out that he has a low IQ, placing him in the borderline intellectual functioning range. At the time of the unaliving, he was receiving state benefits for disability because of his mental capacity. He couldn't hold down a job. People with his profile are highly vulnerable to influence, especially in relationships where somebody else appears more confident or dominant.
That's the most common characterization of Nick in the Gypsyverse. And it's not just TikTok. Here's content creator Brandy from the Dragon's Den on YouTube.
You had Nick groups and Gypsy groups, and there was no in between. And people were brutal. And I began in about 2021 seeing Nick a little bit differently. I didn't see him as the big evil monster.
Content creator Audacious Audrey agrees.
Nicholas and that kid that was manipulated in a way, and I'm not saying that Nick didn't have a dark side to him, but who's to say that dark side would have ever come to light like it did without Gypsy?
And here's Amber and Alora from the Into the Weeds podcast.
It almost seems like people are more sympathetic to Nick than they are to Gypsy.
A lot of people are just blinded by their hatred of Gypsy, that they can't really see the nuance. They just really just hate her, and they just want to see the worst things happen to her and something to finally be proven. And I don't know what they think is actually realistically going to happen at this point.
If you go and watch any of Nick's videos on our channel, you will see that Nick was definitely not the mastermind in that relationship. As a matter of fact, most of those videos I can't even get through because it's hard. So hard to listen to him speak.
I'm telling you right now, I would be able to dominate you to probably where I would scare you right now if I was to go my most roughest and such on you right now to where you would be scared.
You actually listen to what he's saying, and I'm like, I'm not even trying to be rude. I just genuinely cannot make out the words that are coming out of his mouth. There's no way that she really thought all of that about the way that he described things. He was no mastermind.
In 2016, a psychologist named Kent Franks met with Nick Godejohn twice at the Greene County Jail. His conclusion was pretty blunt. Nick Godejohn functions like a 10 or 11-year-old. Here's Nick in 2018 talking in a jailhouse interview about his defense.
I was planning on using my mental disability, which is clearly documented.
His lawyers argued borderline intellectual functioning, which is just a clinical way of saying that he's not legally disabled, but he's not that far either. They put that on the stand, they made their argument. 12 jurors heard every word of it, and it still came back with first-degree murder.
It's done.
Yeah, he's in jail for life.
By October 2025, Nick Godejohn hit a dead end in federal court. A federal judge rejected his petition to overturn his state conviction. While Gypsy is out there living her life, raising a daughter, Nick will most likely die in prison.
I think that Nick's where he belongs, even though I do feel bad for him.
I still felt bad for him.
I still feel bad for him. It's just complicated, unfortunately.
Yeah. He's an autistic man who was getting a Social Security check, a disability check from the government, which is actually hard to do.
Especially with autism.
Yes.
But they also infantilize him a little bit, I think.
Yes, they do.
Is Nicholas Godejohn secretly a good guy?
Here's Nick Godejohn talking from the Greene County Jail to the producers of the Lifetime series, Gypsy's Revenge.
The only thing I don't regret is getting her out of that situation. I regret, however, the way that I had to get her out of the situation, but I don't regret getting her out of it. If I would have been able to run away with her, I wouldn't have any regrets at all.
But surprisingly, the video I saw, he still stands by her.
Yeah, and he even says that there's one thing that he'll never tell anybody and he'll take to his grave, and who knows what that is.
Still love her to this day. That's never going to change. I will always love her. I promised her that I would never change. I'd always unconditionally love her. She apparently says she doesn't love me anymore, which means she was using me. Me, on the other hand, to this day, I still love her.
So was Gypsy manipulating Nick to get him to commit the crime? This isn't just a hypothetical question because of all the public records requests, the FOIA files. We have minute by minute, hour by hour text messages from Nick and Gypsy leading up to the murder. Listen to this recently released prison call with Gypsy Rose Blanchard and BuzzFeed reporter Michelle Dean.
This whole thing got started was that he was talking about how he thinks he's this assassin in another life and like a past life. And he said that he'd do anything to protect me and protect me from anybody. And I said, anybody? And he said, yes. And I said, even my mom? And he said, yes. And I guess that's how the whole thing got started.
In order to get the job done, Nick had to activate his dark side, a persona that he and Gypsy created together. His evil side was a separate entity in his mind, a different person who lived inside him and operated under different rules.
She ended up telling me basically that she didn't believe I was capable of it, and I was just making it seem as if I'm just putting up on a show when I was dead serious the entire time, that when I keep my word, I keep my word. She kept on egging me on there. She ended up throwing an ultimatum out of nowhere. And the thing was, I wanted us to work out no matter what happened. She said, this is the only way we can be together, because as long as my mom's alive, she will not let anyone get between me and her. She made that very clear.
These are the actual text messages entered into evidence available in public court record, and I've read through all of them, and I have to tell you, it's a lot more shocking than what we saw in Mommy, Dead, and Dearest on HBO. Because it's not just what they're planning, it's what they are saying while they are planning it. Let me read you some of these texts. On the night of June 9th, 2015, Gypsy texts Nick, quote, "Your evil side? Does he require just gloves and a knife?" Nick responds that his evil side also wants duct tape to muffle her. Gypsy says, "Okay, baby, we have that. I'll pre-cut it." End quote. She is pre-cutting duct tape to silence her mother. And in the next text message, she's talking about her nail color, what she's going to wear, what they're going to do when it's over. In one message, Gypsy types, quote, "I'll hand him the knife and the duct tape inside, darling." End quote. Remember, when she's talking about him, she's talking about Nick's dark side. Then, a few minutes later, she texts him, quote, "Darling, I'm getting naked in the tub." Each instruction was laced with something sexual. At 8:30 p.m., she writes, quote, "I left the gloves outside the front door, and the screen door is squeaky, so open it just enough to get in and close it gentle." End quote. Then she follows that message by saying, "Tell him my private parts are shaved." Do you see what I'm saying? The murder and then the longing are completely tangled together. She keeps calling him back to his dark side. She texts, quote, "For motivation's sake, bring your A game. This is life with me on the line." End quote. At around 11 p.m., she texts him again, quote, "I'm just going to be in my nightgown with painted pink nails and lip gloss." Just after 1 a.m., she asks him one more question, quote, "How long must I hold my ears?" End quote. 5 minutes at the most, he tells her. 5 minutes. She tells him her mother is drifting off to sleep. Then she asks about anal sex. At 1:41 a.m., about 20 minutes before Nick gets in the cab, she sends him this. "I just want to say this. Thank you. You're my hero, and I will never leave you. I'm staying with you for eternity." The last text is at 2:05 a.m. Gypsy tells him she's sleeping very light. At 2:07, Nick responds, "I'm here." Nick entered Dee Dee's bedroom while she was asleep and stabbed her 14 times. Then, immediately following the murder, Nick walks into Gypsy's room, the room right next door to her mother's body, and they have sex. I have no words.
This episode is brought to you by Nordstrom. For 125 years, Nordstrom has been part of your story. The stylist who found the perfect outfit for your big interview. The first pair of walking shoes for your 1-year-old. The tomato soup you shared with your sister at the cafe. These are the moments that make Nordstrom, Nordstrom. Big or small, we're here for all of it. Celebrating 125 years with new moments still ahead. Discover it all in Nordstrom stores and at Nordstrom.com.
Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat, emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, 0 tears. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
She wanted to have sex with me, so I did.
Okay, she wanted to have sex with you?
Yes.
Okay, and so where'd you guys have sex at?
In her bedroom.
In
her bed.
Her bed. In
yes.
Gypsy's bed?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the anti-Gypsy community reads these texts, they listen to these clips, and they see a manipulator, someone who weaponizes a vulnerable man's alter ego to do her dirty work. I wondered what Gypsy thinks of all this.
And then you have someone like Nick, who, yes, it was diagnosed with being on the spectrum, having Asperger's. But his level of functioning, he could function to a degree. He speaks very well. If you read, my critics have read the messages between us. He's not slow, and not in a way that would be so obvious to the naked eye. So it's like, did his parents not teach him when something's wrong, go to the police?
In other words, Gypsy was a victim of abuse, but she knew exactly what she was doing. She had other choices, but she chose murder. And Nick has autism, but he knows right from wrong. If being a victim of abuse isn't an excuse, Nick having autism shouldn't be either. Andrea Dunlop hosts Nobody Should Believe Me, a podcast about Munchausen by proxy abuse. And she called this out too.
There's no evidence that people who are autistic are more likely to commit violent crimes. There's evidence that they're more likely to be victims of crimes. So I think that line of thinking around Nicholas Godejohn is actually pretty detrimental and can really perpetuate some very negative stereotypes around people who are neurodivergent. So I think that might be accomplishing the opposite of what they're thinking. And again, I think it's this real black and white, this is not a sporting event.
Andrea says we don't need to pick teams.
Was Nicholas Godejohn manipulated by Gypsy Rose Blanchard? Was that something she was taught to do for a long time? Was that sort of a weapon of choice? There's probably a lot of truth to that. And she was also a victim at the time she met him and was extremely isolated.
So the question is, why are we extending sympathy to Nick and not to Gypsy?
Is it because he got a longer prison sentence? Well, okay, then your quibble is with the prosecutor, not with Gypsy. It's just a very there's a lot that's being collapsed onto her shoulders. And I think that's really unfair. And it really, again, this has real implications for other victims. And I think people, especially who are saying this publicly on big platforms, need to understand that they are creating an environment that makes it much harder for Munchausen by proxy victims to come forward and for all victims of abuse to come forward.
Amber from the Into the Weeds podcast and I have been going back and forth on email about this, and she said something that stuck with me. She said, "One thing I've noticed is that people seem to give Gypsy a pass because of what happened to her. And I understand extending grace. I believe in grace, but I don't think grace and accountability are mutually exclusive. To me, it's possible to believe that she was victimized and still believe that she's responsible for the choices she made as an adult. Those two things can exist at the same time." End quote. And really, that's the tension at the center of the story. Because both things can be true. Gypsy was a victim, and she made consequential choices. The question is, at what point does a victim become responsible for her own choices? Her supporters say that you can't hold someone accountable for choices made under years of psychological abuse and coercive control. And her critics say that at some point, adulthood is adulthood.
You know, one thing that you mentioned earlier was Nick's autism, and the anti-Gypsy community has a lot of sympathy for him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why don't they show you that same grace?
They think I'm the master puppeteer that didn't love him and only used him to commit the crime. And that's not how it was. Like, I really believed that I loved Nick at that time. You know, my little understanding of what I was in love with, the idea of being in love, and I felt like I loved him. It wasn't until later that I realized that, you know, it was a toxic relationship, and maybe there was a level of an unintentional manipulation that was going on both parts. You know, you have Nick, who has this level of, you know, autism, but you also have me that also has been sheltered. So it's kind of like, why excuse one without the other? Can't you just chalk it up to both are, you know, not very worldly and have sympathy for both, you know, hate both or sympathize with both? You can't say, and I get this in my comments all the time, free Nick, free Nick. But Nick is the one that did the physical crime. He is the one that murdered my mother in cold blood.
What they think is that you got off easy.
I will agree that my 10-year plea deal is not reflective of the severity of the crime. And I can very much say if I was to have spent the rest of my life in prison, that would have been fair too. Thankfully, in the case of me, the justice system gave me a second chance. I don't apologize for that second chance. All I could do is go on to make my life worth something, to do some good with that second chance. But yeah, I understand that.
When you look at Nick, especially like when you read his messages, when you look at him in the courtroom, when you watch his interviews, you don't see a person that's capable of doing that. When I talk to you right now, like I the whole time, I just have a hard time envisioning that the person in front of me was capable of doing something like that. And I guess my question to you is it within all of us, like, do we all have that ability to commit a crime like that, but we just haven't been put in that situation?
I mean, I think that is biology. You know, if we are pinned person to person and it is you know, kill or be killed, I think all of us has the need and want and drive and biologically fight to survive. And whether it be physically or mentally, you know, we are always trying to self-preserve our own selves. That's a loaded question. That is a very loaded question.
I got you with a question that nobody's...
You got me. You got me. That is a loaded one.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't even know the answer to that. Maybe it's a rhetorical question. I don't know, because I've never been put in that position. But I could imagine myself in that position, right? So I could imagine somebody hurting my wife or my kids. Like, just the thought of somebody hurting my kids, I could see myself getting to that place. I don't know.
The lies, the inconsistencies, the accusations of manipulation. Gypsy's critics add it all up and say that she's not a victim. She is a liar.
Point to one actual piece of evidence of abuse when we know she had a genetic fucking disorder that lines up with every single person that has the same rare neuromuscular disorder as she does. It's like check, 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 check.
At some point, Gypsy's private medical records were leaked online, and her critics say that they found evidence that Gypsy was really sick, and that Dee Dee did not have Munchausen by proxy. That's next time on Pretend. So by now, you've probably heard that someone is releasing Gypsy Rose's prison calls on YouTube and social media. And there's a lot to comb through. Hours and hours of raw tape. But here's one clip that I think calls back to this episode. In this phone call, Gypsy is discussing her breakup with her current partner, Ken. She's upset with Ken's mother's perception of her, and how she doesn't want anyone dictating how she lives her life.
That's about anybody else. I think it's made perfectly clear the fact that I'm on a fucking murder charge. I'm gonna do what the fuck I want to do. I didn't fucking get my own fucking mother murdered just so I can live for everybody else. Okay, I know what I want for my life, and I'm not gonna stand by anybody else's rules or opinions. Just what they feel like is best. In a year, I want to start a family. I don't have time for all this fucking get drunk, get high, fucking woohoo party shit.
I will be including more of these prison calls throughout the season. If you want to binge more episodes ad-free before they're released, join the Pretend Podcast Patreon or become a Pretend Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts. Today's episode was written and produced by me, Javier Leiva. It was edited by the talented Puneet Shenoy with the Podcast Pundits. Our theme music is by Joe Basile with thechicken.net. That's all I got for you right now. Talk to you soon.
Do you hear that? That sound, right? That means that summer's officially here. It means that grown adults just sprint into the street for a frozen dessert shaped like a cartoon. But this summer, Mint Mobile has a better treat. Every plan, including unlimited, is $15 a month. And unlike ice cream, it won't drip down your wrist or look nothing like the picture. Does anyone have any cash? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. New customer offer for initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Creative back.